Marcus Sterling grabbed his 9-year-old son by the arm and twisted. The crack echoed through the penthouse hallway. Lucas screamed. Natasha dropped her champagne glass, and somewhere in that moment, a baby monitor kept recording, capturing every word, every sound, every damning second that would later destroy a $2 billion empire. For 5 days, Elena Vance sat silent in that Chicago courtroom. Everyone thought she was broken. Everyone thought she had already lost. They had no idea she was loading a weapon. Comment below what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Elena Vance walked into courtroom 7C at exactly 9 a.m. Her lawyer, David Chen, was already sweating through his cheap suit. 29 years old, fresh out of law school, court-appointed, because nobody else would take the case. He watched Elena sit down and fold her hands in her lap. "You ready?" he whispered. "Yes." "You don't look ready. You look like you haven't slept in a month." "I haven't." "Elena, listen to me. Marcus has Victoria Cross. They call her the executioner. She hasn't lost a custody case in 15 years. If you have anything at all, you need to tell me now." Elena turned to face him. Her amber eyes were calm, too calm. "David, do you know what I did before I became a nurse?" "You were, I don't know, a secretary, an assistant." "I was a federal medical records analyst, Department of Health and Human Services, 8 years. I put 3 pharmaceutical executives in prison." David stared at her. "What?" Marcus never asked. "He met me at a fundraiser, saw a pretty face and assumed I was nobody. He's been assuming that for 12 years. Before David could respond, the side door opened. Marcus Sterling walked in like he owned the building. Because in a way he did. His company had donated $2 million to the court's renovation fund last year. At 48, Marcus was everything the media loved. Tall, handsome, confident. The son of a Detroit auto worker who had clawed his way from the projects to the Forbes 400. His story had been told 1,000 times, the black kid from poverty who became a billionaire. America loved that story. They just didn't know the real man behind it. He sat down at the defense table without looking at Elena. Not once. Behind him came Victoria Cross. 62 years old, silver hair, cold eyes. She scanned the room, spotted David Chen, and smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "All rise." Judge Patricia Moreau took the bench. 62, steel gray hair, zero tolerance for nonsense. She had been a family court judge for 23 years. She had seen every kind of liar, every kind of monster. She thought she had seen it all. She was wrong. "Ms. Cross," Judge Moreau said. Opening statement. Victoria stood up slowly. She buttoned her jacket. She walked toward the center of the room. "Your Honor, this case is simple. My client, Marcus Sterling, is a dedicated father. He coaches his son's soccer team. He reads to his daughter every night. He has donated over $50 million to children's hospitals across this country." She paused. "And then there's Elena Vance." Victoria didn't look at Elena. She didn't need to. Ms. Vance works part-time as a night shift nurse. She lives in a 2-bedroom apartment. She has no family support, no resources, no stability. Victoria walked closer to the plaintiff's table. "We will present testimony from household staff who witnessed her neglect. We will present evidence of erratic behavior, paranoid accusations, emotional instability. And we will show this court that Elena Vance has remained silent throughout these proceedings because she has nothing to say." She stopped directly in front of Elena. "Some call that dignity. I call it defeat." Victoria returned to her seat. Marcus patted her arm. Judge Moreau looked at David. "Mr. Chen, your response?" David stood up. His legal pad fell to the floor. He scrambled to pick it up. "Your Honor, my client loves her children. The accusations are they're based on testimony from people who work for Mr. Sterling, who are paid by Mr. Sterling, who..." Mr. Chen. Judge Moreau's voice was flat. Do you have evidence, or do you have stammering, "Evidence, Your Honor. We have evidence." Then present it when the time comes. Sit down. David sat. Elena didn't react. She stared straight ahead at the state seal hanging above the judge's bench. Her hands remained folded in her lap. Still. Patient. Waiting. The first witness was Maria Santos. She had been the Sterling family's head housekeeper for 6 years. Elena knew she had been paid $50,000 to testify today. She had seen the wire transfer 3 months ago. "Mrs. Santos," Victoria said warmly, "describe the home environment when Ms. Vance was present." Maria shifted in her seat. She wouldn't look at Elena. It was tense. Tense how? Mrs. Stair, Ms. Vance, she was often distracted. She spent a lot of time alone in her office. She didn't engage with the children the way Mr. Sterling did. Give us an example. Lucas's birthday. She forgot to order the cake. Mr. Sterling had to call the bakery himself. Lucas was crying. The gallery murmured. Victoria nodded gravely. Forgot her own son's birthday cake. No further questions. Judge Moreau looked at David. Cross-examination. David stood up. "Mrs. Santos, you work for Mr. Sterling." "Yes." "He pays your salary." "Yes." "So if you testified against him, you'd lose your job," Victoria shot up. "Objection. Sustained." Judge Moreau sighed. "Rephrase, Mr. Chen." David fumbled with his notes. No further questions. He sat down. Elena closed her eyes for 1 second. Just one. This was going exactly as she expected. The second witness was Dr. Richard Hayes, a psychiatrist who had never met Elena, but had reviewed her case file at Victoria's request. "In your professional opinion," Victoria asked, "does Ms. Vance exhibit signs of emotional instability?" Dr. Hayes nodded. "Based on the materials I reviewed, erratic texts, the incident at Mr. Sterling's office, testimony from staff, I would diagnose paranoid personality disorder." What does that mean for her parenting? She may perceive threats where none exist. She may make accusations without basis. In extreme cases, she could put her children at risk. Victoria smiled. "Thank you, doctor." David's cross-examination lasted 45 seconds. "Did you ever actually meet Ms. Vance?" "No." "Your diagnosis is based entirely on materials provided by Mr. Sterling's legal team." "I reviewed them objectively." No further questions. David sat down. He leaned toward Elena. "I'm dying out here. Give me something." Elena's voice was barely a whisper. "Wait for Marcus to take the stand." "Why?" "Because I need him to lie under oath. I need him to confirm on the record that certain things don't exist. And then I'm going to prove they do." David stared at her. "Elena, what the hell are you planning?" She didn't answer. Day 2. Day 3. More witnesses. A nanny testified Elena was cold and distant. A driver testified she once left the children waiting for 45 minutes. A personal chef testified she rarely ate dinner with the family. Each testimony was a knife. Each lie drew blood. Through it all, Elena sat motionless. She didn't cry. She didn't shake her head. She didn't whisper to David. She watched. She listened. She counted. In the gallery, reporters exchanged glances. "It's over," one whispered. "She hasn't said a word in 3 days. Maybe she knows she can't win. Or maybe she's just broken." Behind them, Natasha Marcus's 26-year-old fiancé leaned toward her friend. "She hasn't said a word," Natasha said loud enough for the back row to hear. "It's practically an admission." Marcus turned and winked at her. Everything was going according to plan. Day 4. Marcus Sterling took the stand. He walked to the witness box like a man accepting an award. He placed his hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth, and settled into the chair. "Mr. Sterling," Victoria began, "describe your relationship with your children." Marcus smiled. "Lucas and Sophie are my world. Everything I've built, the company, the foundations, everything, it's for them. I coach Lucas's soccer team every Saturday. I read to Sophie every night I'm home. We go fishing at my cabin in Minnesota every summer." "And Elena's relationship with the children?" The smile faded. Marcus sighed. "I love Elena. I want to be clear about that. But she changed after Sophie was born. She became distant, paranoid. She accused me of hiding money. She accused me of affairs. She showed up at my office once screaming about evidence she claimed to have. Security had to escort her out." He shook his head. "It broke my heart. This brilliant woman I married, she wasn't herself anymore. That's why I filed for divorce. Not because I stopped loving her. Because I had to protect my children." Victoria nodded. "Let's address the financial allegations. Ms. Vance claimed you have offshore accounts. Is this true?" Marcus laughed. "Absolutely not. I'm an American businessman. I pay my taxes. Every dollar is accounted for. My accountants can verify everything." "You have no hidden assets?" "None. Zero. Elena's claims are pure fantasy." "No offshore accounts?" "None whatsoever." Victoria smiled. "Thank you, Mr. Sterling. No further questions." Judge Moreau looked at David. Cross-examination. David stood slowly. "Mr. Sterling, you said Elena became paranoid after Sophie's birth. Did she ever express concerns about your behavior specifically? What do you mean? Did she ever accuse you of violence?" Victoria shot up. "Objection. No evidence of violence has been presented." "Sustained." Judge Moreau frowned. "Mr. Chen, move on." David looked at Elena. She shook her head slightly. "Not yet." "No further questions," David said. Marcus returned to his seat. He patted Victoria's shoulder. "Good work. Wrap it up. I have a board meeting at 4. Closing arguments tomorrow. Then we celebrate." Marcus grinned. He was so confident that he didn't notice Elena watching him. He didn't notice the slight change in her posture, the way she sat up straighter, the way her fingers stopped their nervous tapping. He didn't notice that for 4 days she had been waiting for him to say those exact words. No offshore accounts. None whatsoever. Now she had him. That night, Elena sat alone in her apartment. Lucas had hugged her before leaving with the court-appointed guardian. "Mommy, are you going to win?" "Yes, baby." "How do you know?" Elena had knelt down to look him in the eye. "Because I've been preparing for this moment for a very long time. And your daddy made a big mistake." "What mistake?" "He forgot who I was before I met him." Now, sitting in the dark, Elena pulled out her phone. A text from David. "Elena, they're going to close tomorrow. We have nothing. We're going to lose." She typed back, "We're not going to lose." "How can you be so sure?" She didn't respond. Instead, she walked to her closet and pulled out a small fireproof safe. Inside was a USB drive. Black. Unremarkable. She held it in her palm. 847 pages of falsified clinical trial data. Emails between Sterling executives. Bank records showing $73 million in offshore accounts. And one audio file. March 15th, the night her son came home with his arm in a cast. Elena remembered that night like it was yesterday. Lucas had walked through the door limping, his wrist wrapped, his eyes hollow. "What happened, baby?" "I fell." "Where?" "On the stairs." "Which stairs?" Lucas wouldn't meet her eyes. "Dad said not to tell you." Elena's blood had gone cold. She had seen this before in the ER in the shelters where she volunteered. The rehearsed answers, the averted gaze, the fear. She had taken Lucas to a different hospital, not Sterling Medical's affiliate. A small clinic run by her mentor, Dr. Samuel Ortega. The X-rays showed what the official report had missed. A spiral fracture. The kind you get when someone grabs your arm and twists. Hard. This wasn't a fall, Dr. Ortega had said. I know. What are you going to do? Elena had looked at her son's X-ray backlit against the viewing screen. I'm going to remember who I am. For 12 years, she had been invisible. The quiet wife, the trophy. The woman who smiled for photographs and pretended not to notice when her husband came home smelling like another woman's perfume. Marcus had never asked about her past. He assumed she was nobody. He didn't know about her father, Alexander Vance, the cryptographer who had designed trading algorithms for Wall Street before dying mysteriously when Elena was 22. He didn't know about the inheritance $40 million hidden in a blind trust, quietly invested in Sterling Medical stock before they were even married. He didn't know that she now owned 38% of his company. And tomorrow, he would find out. Elena placed the USB drive in her purse. She set her alarm for 5:00 a.m. And for the first time in months, she slept. Day 5. The courtroom was packed. Word had spread that closing arguments would happen this morning. Reporters filled the gallery. Cameras waited in the hallway. Elena arrived early. David was already there pacing. You look different today, he said. I feel different. Elena, please, whatever you're planning. David, she cut him off. Do you trust me? He stopped pacing. I barely know you. That's not what I asked. David looked at her. There was something in her eyes he couldn't name. Certainty. Purpose. Yes, he said finally. I trust you. Good. When Judge Moreau asks if I want to speak, I'm going to say yes. Don't interrupt me. Speak about what? About who my husband really is. The bailiff called the court to order. Judge Moreau took her seat. Victoria delivered her closing argument. Brilliant. Polished. Devastating. The evidence is clear. Elena Vance cannot provide stability for these children. For their sake, for their future custody must be granted to Marcus Sterling. She sat down. Marcus nodded. Judge Moreau turned to the plaintiff's table. Mr. Chen, you're closing. David started to stand. Elena's hand shot out and gripped his wrist. No. She rose to her feet. Your Honor, I would like to speak for myself. The gallery erupted in whispers. Victoria jumped up. Objection. This is highly irregular. I have the right to address the court regarding my children's welfare. Judge Moreau studied Elena. For 4 days she had watched this woman sit in silence while her life was destroyed. She had seen something in that silence, not defeat, patience. I'll allow it. Proceed, Ms. Vance. Elena stepped around the table. She walked to the center of the room. She turned and faced Marcus. For the first time in the trial, their eyes met. Marcus smirked. Elena didn't blink. Before I was a nurse, she said. Before I was a wife. Before I was a mother, I was a federal medical records analyst. Department of Health and Human Services. 8 years. My specialty was detecting falsified clinical trial data. Marcus's smirk faltered. I testified in 3 federal cases. 3 pharmaceutical executives went to prison because of my work. Then I burned out. I wanted a simpler life. I became a nurse. I fell in love. She paused. I forgot who I was. Marcus helped me forget. He made me feel small, invisible, stupid. Her voice hardened. But I remembered. She reached into her purse and pulled out the USB drive. This morning I submitted this to the bailiff under seal. It contains 847 pages of clinical trial data for HeartSync, a cardiac monitoring device currently in Phase 3 FDA trials. Data showing that Sterling Medical has been suppressing evidence of adverse events. Heart arrhythmias, blood clots, deaths. Marcus shot to his feet. This is fabricated. Sit down, Mr. Sterling. Judge Moreau's voice was ice. Marcus sat. Elena continued. The drive also contains bank records, $73 million in offshore accounts, under the name Natasha Holdings, LLC. In the gallery, Natasha made a sound like a wounded animal. Accounts that Mr. Sterling testified yesterday under oath do not exist. Victoria's face went white. But that's not why I'm here. Elena's voice dropped. Your Honor, there's one more file on this drive. An audio recording, March 15th of this year. The night my son Lucas came home with a broken arm. The courtroom went silent. Mr. Sterling testified he was at a charity gala that night. There are photographs of him arriving at 10:30 p.m. She looked at Marcus. Ask him where he was at 9:47 p.m. Judge Moreau's eyes narrowed. Mr. Sterling, where were you at 9:47 p.m. on March 15th? Marcus's face was gray. I was getting ready. Play the file, Your Honor. Judge Moreau inserted the drive into her laptop. She clicked the file. Static filled the courtroom. A door slamming. Then Marcus's voice. Not smooth. Not charming. Slurred. Vicious. I told you to stay in your room, you little brat. Lucas's voice small and scared. Dad, I just wanted water. You're just like your mother. Weak. Pathetic. Get out of my way. A cry. A crack. Silence. Then Natasha's voice panicked. Marcus. His arm. I think you broke it. Marcus on the recording suddenly cold and sober. Call my private doctor, not 911. Tell him the kid fell down the stairs. And if you say one word about this to anyone, I'll destroy you like I'm destroying her. The recording ended. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Judge Moreau slowly removed her glasses. She looked at Marcus Sterling with something beyond disgust. You broke your son's arm, she said. Then you went to a party. It was an accident, he fell. We just heard you tell him to get out of your way. We heard him scream. We heard his arm break. We heard you threaten a witness. Marcus turned to Victoria. She was packing her briefcase. Bailiff. Judge Moreau's voice was calm, deadly. Contact Chicago PD. Take Mr. Sterling into custody. Charges perjury, child abuse, witness tampering, and fraud. Two officers moved forward. Marcus lunged toward Elena. You think you've won? I made you. You were nothing. I'll destroy you. I'll kill you for this. Let the record show, Judge Moreau interrupted, that Mr. Sterling has just issued a death threat against the petitioner in open court. Bail is denied. Get him out of my sight. The handcuffs clicked around Marcus's wrists. He was still screaming as they dragged him toward the door. Elena, this isn't over. You hear me? I'll find you. The door slammed shut. Silence. Judge Moreau turned to Elena. Ms. Vance, full legal and physical custody is granted immediately. Mr. Sterling's visitation rights are permanently suspended. All assets are frozen pending investigation. Thank you, Your Honor. Don't thank me. Judge Moreau's voice softened. You waited 4 days. You let him lie under oath. You let him threaten you on the record. That took courage. It took patience. Same thing sometimes. Elena nodded. She picked up her purse. She walked toward the door. The press was waiting. Cameras, microphones, shouting. Elena, is it true he abused your son? How long have you been planning this? Did you know about the offshore accounts? Elena stopped. She pulled sunglasses from her purse and put them on. My name is Elena Vance, and the truth speaks for itself. She walked through the crowd. She didn't look back. Behind her, the empire was already burning. The news broke before Elena reached her car. Her phone exploded with notifications. CNN, Fox, MSNBC. Every major outlet in the country was running the same headline: Billionaire Marcus Sterling arrested in courtroom after child abuse recording surfaces. She didn't read any of them. She drove straight to the Guardian's office to pick up Lucas and Sophie. When she walked through the door, Lucas ran to her and wrapped his arms around her waist. Mommy, did you win? Yes, baby, I won. Is Daddy going to jail? Elena knelt down to look him in the eye. Your daddy did some very bad things. And when grown-ups do bad things, there are consequences. Lucas nodded slowly. He understood more than a 9-year-old should. He hurt me, Lucas whispered. That night. He said if I told anyone, he'd make sure I never saw you again. Elena's heart cracked. You never have to be afraid of him again. I promise. Sophie, 6 years old, tugged at Elena's sleeve. Mommy, why is everyone on TV talking about Daddy? Because the truth came out, sweetheart. And now, everyone knows. She gathered both children and walked out into the afternoon sun. For the first time in 12 years, she could breathe. But she knew this was only the beginning. Marcus Sterling was not the kind of man who accepted defeat. He was the kind of man who burned everything down rather than admit he lost. And right now, sitting in a holding cell, he was already planning his revenge. The call came at 11:47 p.m. Elena was lying in bed staring at the ceiling when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered anyway. Hello? Mrs. Sterling. A man's voice, smooth, professional, cold. My name is Jonathan Price. I represent your husband. Ex-husband. The divorce isn't finalized yet, Mrs. Sterling. Legally, you're still married. Elena sat up. What do you want? Mr. Sterling would like to propose a settlement. Full custody to you. No visitation rights. In exchange, you withdraw the evidence you submitted to the court and issue a public statement that the recording was taken out of context. Elena laughed. It was not a kind laugh. Your client broke my son's arm. He threatened to kill me in open court. And you want me to say it was taken out of context? Mrs. Sterling, I understand you're upset. I'm not upset. I'm done. Tell Marcus there is no deal. Tell him the FBI is going to tear his company apart. Tell him the FDA is going to investigate every clinical trial he's ever run. And tell him that when he's sitting in a federal prison cell, I want him to remember this moment. She paused. The moment he realized he married the wrong woman. She hung up. The phone rang again immediately. She turned it off. 48 hours later, Marcus Sterling posted bail. $10 million, cash, paid within the hour. Elena found out from David Chen, who called her in a panic. How is this possible? She demanded. The judge denied bail. His lawyers appealed to the 7th Circuit. They claimed health concerns. Apparently, Marcus has a heart condition nobody knew about. The appeals court overturned the denial. A heart condition. He ran a marathon last year. I know, but he has 3 doctors willing to testify that he's at risk of cardiac arrest under stress. The court ordered house arrest with electronic monitoring. Elena closed her eyes. Where is he now? Back at the penthouse. Ankle monitor. 24-hour security. He can't leave the building, but he can still make phone calls. He can still give orders. He can still destroy evidence. Elena, I'm worried. This guy has resources we can't even imagine. He's going to come after you. I know. What are you going to do? Elena opened her laptop. I'm going to finish what I started. The board meeting was scheduled for Friday morning at 9:00 a.m. Elena had received the notice by certified mail. As a shareholder, the largest individual shareholder, as it turned out, she had the right to attend. She had also received 17 phone calls from board members she had never met. All of them wanted the same thing, to know her intentions. She hadn't returned any of the calls. Thursday night, she sat at her kitchen table with a stack of documents, financial records, corporate bylaws, shareholder agreements, things she had been collecting for years, waiting for the right moment. Lucas walked in, rubbing his eyes. Mommy, why are you still awake? I have a big meeting tomorrow. About Daddy's company? Yes. Lucas climbed into the chair across from her. Are you going to take it away from him? Elena looked at her son. 9 years old. A broken arm that had healed. Nightmares that hadn't. I'm going to make sure he can never hurt anyone again. Lucas nodded. Good. He went back to bed. Elena returned to her documents. At 3:00 a.m., she finally found what she was looking for. A clause buried in the original incorporation papers. A clause that Marcus had signed 12 years ago when he was desperate for funding and didn't read the fine print. The Chimera Trust. Elena's blind trust had invested $40 million in Sterling Medical Technologies when it was just a startup. In exchange, the trust received preferred shares with special voting rights. Rights that allowed the trust to call for a vote of no confidence in the CEO. Rights that Marcus had forgotten existed. Rights that Elena was about to exercise. The Sterling Medical Technologies headquarters occupied the top 15 floors of a glass tower downtown. Elena walked through the lobby at 8:45 a.m. Security guards stared at her. Executives whispered. Nobody stopped her. She took the elevator to the 40th floor. The boardroom was already full when she arrived. 12 people sat around an enormous table. Jonathan Priest. The chairman sat at the head. He was 73 years old, white-haired, with the look of a man who had sold his soul decades ago and was still waiting for the check to clear. Vivian Lee, the representative for Asian markets, sat to his left. Maxwell Carter, the CFO, sat to his right. He was sweating heavily despite the air conditioning. They all turned when Elena walked in. Mrs. Sterling, Priest said carefully. This is a closed meeting. Ms. Vance, Elena corrected. And according to Section 7.4 of the corporate bylaws, any shareholder holding more than 25% of voting shares has the right to attend board meetings. I hold 38%. She sat down at the opposite end of the table. Please continue. Priest cleared his throat. We were discussing the situation with Mr. Sterling. Obviously, the recent events have created some challenges. Challenges, Elena interrupted. Your CEO is under house arrest for child abuse. The FDA has opened an investigation into HeartSync. Your stock dropped 43% in 2 days. Challenges seems like an understatement. Maxwell Carter spoke up. His voice was shaking. Ms. Vance, we understand you're upset, but the company is separate from Marcus's personal issues. We need to focus on damage control, not... I'm not here for damage control. Elena opened her briefcase and pulled out a single sheet of paper. I'm here to invoke Section 12.3 of the Incorporation Agreement. The Chimera Trust, of which I am the sole trustee, is calling for an immediate vote of no confidence in Marcus Sterling as CEO. The room went silent. Priest leaned forward. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. The preferred shares issued to the Chimera Trust in 2012 carried double voting rights in matters of executive leadership. Combined with my personal holdings, I control 57% of the votes on this issue. She slid the paper across the table. The motion is on the table. Call the vote. Vivian Lee picked up the paper and read it. Her face went pale. This is legitimate, she said quietly. It can't be, Priest snapped. Marcus founded this company. He is this company. Marcus falsified clinical trial data, Elena said calmly. He embezzled $12 million. He committed perjury. And he broke my son's arm because a 9-year-old boy wanted a glass of water. She looked around the table. If you want to tie your careers to that man, be my guest. But when the FBI finishes their investigation, anyone who protected him is going down too. Maxwell Carter raised his hand. I vote yes. Remove him. Vivian Lee nodded. Yes. One by one, the hands went up. 11 votes. Unanimous. Priest was the last holdout. His face was purple with rage. This is a coup, he spat. Marcus will destroy you for this. Marcus can't destroy anyone from a prison cell. Elena stood up. The motion passes. Marcus Sterling is removed as CEO, effective immediately. As the largest shareholder, I'm appointing myself interim chairwoman until a permanent replacement can be found. She walked to the head of the table. You're in my seat, Mr. Priest. Priest stared at her for a long moment. Then he stood up and walked out without a word. Elena sat down. She looked at the 11 remaining board members. Now, let's discuss how we're going to save this company. The call to Marcus was inevitable. It came 2 hours after the board meeting ended. Elena was in her new office. Marcus's old office, reviewing the damage reports when her phone rang. "Private number," she answered. "You think you're clever." Marcus's voice was low, dangerous. "You think you've won. I removed you from your own company, Marcus. The company you built. The company you named after yourself. I'm sitting in your chair right now. So yes, I think I've won." "You haven't won anything. You've just made yourself a target." "Is that a threat?" "It's a fact. I have friends you don't know about. I have resources you can't imagine. I made you Elena. I took you from nothing and gave you everything. And now you betray me." Elena laughed softly. "You didn't make me, Marcus. You tried to erase me. There's a difference. I'll get out of this. I always do. And when I do, I'm coming for you. I'm coming for the company. And I'm coming for those kids." Elena's voice went cold. "Let me be very clear about something. If you come anywhere near my children, I won't call the police. I won't call a lawyer. I will end you myself. And I'll make sure nobody ever finds the pieces." Silence on the other end. "You've changed," Marcus said finally. "No, I just stopped pretending to be someone I'm not." She hung up. Her hands were shaking, but she wasn't afraid. She was ready. The FBI raid happened 3 days later. 40 agents descended on Sterling Medical Technologies at 6:00 a.m. They seized computers, files, hard drives. They interviewed employees. They subpoenaed records going back a decade. Elena cooperated fully. She handed over everything she had. The falsified trial data. The offshore account records. The emails between Marcus and his executives discussing how to manage the negative results from HeartSync. Agent Patricia Wells, the lead investigator, sat across from Elena in the conference room. "You've been collecting this for how long?" "Years. And you never reported it." "I was waiting for the right moment." "The right moment being when your husband tried to take your children." Elena met her eyes. "Agent Wells, my husband broke my son's arm and paid a doctor to cover it up. He was going to take my children and raise them to be just like him. I wasn't going to let that happen. So this was all about the kids. It started that way, but it became about something else too." "What?" Elena leaned back in her chair. "When I was a federal analyst, I put people like Marcus in prison. People who falsified data. People who let patients die to protect their profits. I believed in justice. I believed the system worked." She paused. "Then I married a monster, and I watched him by judges, by doctors, by politicians. I watched him destroy anyone who challenged him. I watched the system fail over and over again." Her voice hardened. "So I stopped waiting for the system. I became the system." Agent Wells studied her for a long moment. "Off the record, I wish more people thought like you. Off the record, I wish I didn't have to." The investigation expanded. Within a week, the FDA had frozen all clinical trials for HeartSync. The SEC had opened a parallel investigation into securities fraud. 3 of Marcus's top executives had already agreed to cooperate in exchange for immunity. And then the witness came forward. Her name was Dr. Sarah Chen. She had been the lead researcher on the HeartSync trials. She had documented everything. Every corner cut. Every death covered up. Every email from Marcus demanding results at any cost. She had been too afraid to speak up. Until now. Elena met with her personally. "Why did you stay silent?" Elena asked. Dr. Chen's hands were trembling. "He threatened my family. He said if I talked, he would make sure my daughter never got into medical school. He said he would destroy my husband's business. He said..." She broke down. He said he would do to my children what he did to yours. Elena reached across the table and took her hand. He can't hurt you anymore, I promise. How can you be so sure? Because I'm going to put him away for the rest of his life. Dr. Chen looked up. The trial data I documented there were 17 deaths that were reclassified as unrelated to the device. 17 people who died because of heart sync. I have the original files, the real files. I kept them hidden for 3 years. Elena's heart stopped. Where are they? On a hard drive, in a safe deposit box. I was too scared to use them. Are you scared now? Dr. Chen met her eyes. I'm terrified, but I'm more terrified of what happens if I stay silent. Elena squeezed her hand. Give me the files. I'll make sure the right people see them. And then what? And then we bury him. The files changed everything. 17 deaths. 17 families who had been told their loved ones died of natural causes. 17 people whose blood was on Marcus Sterling's hands. When the FDA saw the evidence, they didn't just freeze the trials. They recalled every heart sync device already implanted. The headlines exploded. Class action lawsuits materialized overnight. Sterling Medical's stock didn't just drop, it collapsed. Trading was halted. The company's valuation went from $12 billion to effectively zero. And Marcus Sterling, sitting in his penthouse under house arrest, watched his empire crumble in real time. Elena received the call from Agent Wells at 11:00 p.m. We're upgrading the charges. To what? 17 counts of negligent homicide, plus the fraud charges, plus the child abuse. He's looking at 50 years to life. Elena closed her eyes. Will he take a deal? His lawyers are already calling. They want to negotiate. No deals. Ms. Vance. No deals, Agent Wells. He killed 17 people. He broke my son's arm. He threatened my life in open court. He goes to trial. He faces a jury. And he spends the rest of his life in a cell. Silence on the other end. I'll pass that along. You do that. She hung up. The next morning, Marcus's lawyers requested an emergency meeting. Elena agreed to see them. Not because she was willing to negotiate, because she wanted to see the look on their faces when she said no. Jonathan Price walked into the conference room with 2 associates and a stack of documents. Ms. Vance, thank you for meeting with us. Get to the point. Price cleared his throat. Mr. Sterling is prepared to plead guilty to lesser charges. Fraud, falsifying records. In exchange, the prosecution drops the homicide counts, and he serves 5 to 7 years in a minimum security facility. No. Ms. Vance, please consider. I said no. He's willing to sign over his remaining shares to you, full control of the company, plus the offshore accounts, $73 million. Elena stood up. You think this is about money? Everything is about money, Ms. Vance. Not this. She walked around the table until she was standing directly in front of Price. 17 people are dead because your client cared more about his stock price than their lives. 9 years ago, he put his hands on my son and broke his arm. Then he went to a party and smiled for the cameras. Her voice dropped. He doesn't get a deal. He doesn't get a minimum security country club. He goes to trial. He faces those 17 families. And he spends the rest of his life knowing that he lost everything, not because the system beat him, but because his quiet little wife burned his empire to the ground. She smiled. Now get out of my building. Price stared at her. You're making a mistake. No, Marcus made the mistake. He forgot who I was. Now everyone knows. She opened the door. We're done here. Price gathered his documents and walked out. His associates followed. Elena stood alone in the conference room. She looked out the window at the Chicago skyline. Somewhere out there, Marcus Sterling was watching his world collapse. Somewhere out there, 17 families were finally getting justice. Somewhere out there, her son was sleeping peacefully for the first time in months. It wasn't over yet. The trial was still coming. But for the first time since she'd walked down that aisle 12 years ago, Elena Vance knew exactly who she was, and she wasn't afraid anymore. She was just getting started. 3 months passed before the trial began. Elena spent every day preparing. She met with prosecutors. She reviewed evidence. She sat with the families of the 17 victims, listening to their stories, holding their hands, promising them that justice was coming. Lucas started seeing a therapist twice a week. The nightmares were fading. He was smiling again. Sophie didn't fully understand what had happened. She just knew that Daddy wasn't coming home anymore, and Mommy seemed happier than she had been in a long time. On the morning the trial started, Elena woke up at 4:00 a.m. She couldn't sleep. She stood at her window watching the city wake up below her. Somewhere across town, Marcus was being transported from his penthouse to the federal courthouse. His ankle monitor had been replaced with handcuffs. His Italian suits had been replaced with an orange jumpsuit. The golden boy of American medicine was about to face judgment. Elena's phone buzzed. A text from David Chen. "You ready for this?" She typed back. "I've been ready for 12 years." The courthouse was surrounded by media. Cameras, reporters, protesters holding signs that said, "Justice for the 17," and "Sterling is a murderer." Elena pushed through the crowd with her head held high. Inside the courtroom was packed. Every seat taken. Standing room only. She sat in the front row directly behind the prosecution table. When they brought Marcus in, she didn't look away. He had lost weight. His face was gaunt. The arrogance that had defined him for decades was still there, but it was cracked now. Brittle. He scanned the room until his eyes found Elena. She didn't flinch. He smiled. It was the smile of a man who still believed he could win. Elena smiled back. It was the smile of a woman who knew he couldn't. The prosecution's opening statement took 2 hours. Assistant U.S. Attorney Michael Torres laid out the case piece by piece. The falsified clinical trial data, the 17 deaths, the cover-up, the bribes, the offshore accounts, the child abuse. He showed photographs of the victims, mothers, fathers, grandparents, people who had trusted Sterling Medical with their lives, people who had died because Marcus Sterling cared more about his stock price than their survival. When Torres finished, the defense stood up. Marcus had hired the best. Richard Covington, former federal prosecutor, now the highest-paid defense attorney in the country. He had never lost a case. He adjusted his tie and faced the jury. "Ladies and gentlemen, you've just heard a compelling story. A villain, victims, a brave woman who exposed the truth. It's the kind of story Hollywood loves." He paused. "But this is not Hollywood. This is a court of law. And in a court of law, we deal in facts, not narratives, not emotions. Facts." He walked toward the jury box. "The prosecution wants you to believe that Marcus Sterling is a monster. They want you to believe he knowingly killed 17 people. They want you to believe he broke his own son's arm." Covington shook his head. "But here's what they don't want you to know. The clinical trial data was managed by a team of researchers, not Marcus personally. The offshore accounts were set up by financial advisors, not Marcus personally. And the recording you've heard, that recording was made illegally by a woman who had already decided to destroy her husband." He turned and pointed at Elena. "Elena Vance is not a victim. She's not a hero. She's a woman who spent 12 years planning the ultimate revenge. She manipulated evidence. She manipulated the court. And now she's manipulating you." Elena didn't react. She had expected this. Covington continued for another hour. He attacked her credibility. He questioned her motives. He painted her as a jealous, vindictive wife who had fabricated evidence to steal her husband's fortune. When he finished, he sat down next to Marcus. Marcus leaned over and whispered something. Covington nodded. Elena watched them carefully. Something was wrong. They were too confident. The first week of testimony focused on the clinical trials. Dr. Sarah Chen took the stand. She walked the jury through the data, the real data. She explained how adverse events had been reclassified, how deaths had been attributed to unrelated causes, how she had been threatened into silence. Dr. Chen Torres asked, "Who gave you the order to falsify the data?" Marcus Sterling, directly. "How email, phone calls, in-person meetings. He told me the launch couldn't be delayed. He said 17 deaths were acceptable losses." Acceptable losses? Dr. Chen's voice cracked. His exact words were, 17 people out of 10,000 is a rounding error. Nobody will notice, and if they do, we'll settle. The jury looked sick. On cross-examination, Covington tried to discredit her. "Dr. Chen, isn't it true that you're testifying in exchange for immunity?" "Yes." "So you have a personal incentive to blame Mr. Sterling." "I have a personal incentive to tell the truth." "Finally." "But you participated in the cover-up. For 3 years. You could have spoken up at any time." "I was afraid." "Afraid of what?" Dr. Chen looked directly at Marcus. "Afraid of him. Afraid of what he would do to my family. Afraid of ending up like the 17 people he killed." Covington had no response. The second week brought the families. One by one they took the stand. Widows, widowers. Children who had lost parents. Parents who had lost children. Margaret Williams was 67 years old. Her husband had been one of the heart sink victims. "We were married for 43 years, she said, her voice trembling. "Robert trusted doctors. He trusted medicine. When they told him heart sink would save his life, he believed them." She wiped her eyes. 3 months after the implant, he collapsed in our kitchen. I called 911. They tried to revive him for 20 minutes. He died in my arms. Torres handed her a tissue. "Mrs. Williams, did anyone from Sterling Medical contact you after your husband's death?" "Yes, they sent a lawyer. He offered me $50,000 to sign a confidentiality agreement. He said if I didn't sign, they would prove Robert's death was caused by his own negligence." "What did you do?" "I threw him out of my house." Elena watched the jury. Several of them were crying. Covington's cross-examination was brief. "Mrs. Williams, I'm very sorry for your loss. But isn't it possible that your husband's death was due to his pre-existing heart condition, not the device?" Margaret Williams straightened in her chair. "My husband ran marathons until he was 60. His heart was fine until Sterling Medical put their defective device inside him. Don't you dare blame him for what your client did." Covington sat down. He didn't ask another question. The third week was about the money. FBI forensic accountants testified about the offshore accounts. $73 million hidden in shell companies across 4 countries. Money that Marcus had stolen from the company. Money that should have gone to research to safety testing to the 17 people who died. Maxwell Carter, the former CFO, took the stand. He had cut a deal with prosecutors, full immunity in exchange for testimony. "Mr. Carter," Torres asked, "did you personally help Mr. Sterling hide assets?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because he told me to, and because I was afraid of what would happen if I refused." "What did you think would happen?" Maxwell looked at Marcus. "He destroyed everyone who crossed him, careers, reputations, lives. I watched him do it for 10 years. I wasn't going to be next." "But you're testifying now." "Because Elena Vance showed me something I forgot existed." "What's that?" "Courage." Elena felt the word land in her chest. She hadn't expected that. The fourth week was about Lucas. Elena had fought against this. She didn't want her son to testify. She didn't want him to relive that night. But the prosecution needed his testimony, and brave Lucas had insisted. "I want to tell them what Daddy did," he said. "I want everyone to know." Elena held his hand as they walked into the courthouse. "You don't have to do this, baby." "Yes, I do. You taught me that the truth matters, even when it's hard." She kissed his forehead. "I'm so proud of you." Lucas took the stand. He looked so small in that big chair, 9 years old, facing the man who had hurt him. Torres approached gently. Lucas, can you tell us what happened on March 15th? Lucas took a deep breath. I woke up because I was thirsty. I went downstairs to get water. Daddy was in the living room with Natasha. He was drinking. What happened when he saw you? He got really mad. He said I was supposed to be in bed. He said I was always in the way. Then what happened? Lucas's voice got smaller. He grabbed my arm. He twisted it. I heard something crack. It hurt really bad. I screamed. And then he just walked away. He told Natasha to call the doctor and say I fell. The courtroom was silent. Torres handed Lucas a tissue. Lucas, did anyone tell you what to say today? No. Are you telling the truth? Lucas looked directly at Marcus. Yes, I'm telling the truth. And I'm not scared of him anymore. Elena felt tears streaming down her face. She wasn't the only one. Covington's cross-examination was the moment everything changed. He stood up slowly. He adjusted his tie. He walked toward Lucas with the careful steps of a predator approaching prey. Lucas, I'm sorry about what happened to you. Really, I am. Lucas didn't respond. But I have to ask you some questions. Is that okay? Lucas nodded. You said your father grabbed your arm, but isn't it possible that you fell, that you were sleepy and you tripped and your arm got hurt? No. He grabbed me. But you were half asleep. It was dark. Maybe you're confused about what really happened. I'm not confused. Lucas, your mother? Don't talk about my mom. Covington paused. I'm sorry. You're trying to make me say something that isn't true. Just like you're trying to make everyone think my mom is bad. But she's not bad. She's the bravest person I know. Lucas's voice rose. My daddy hurt me. He broke my arm. And then he went to a party like nothing happened. I heard him tell Natasha what to say. I heard everything. And I'm not going to lie for him. Not ever. Covington stood frozen. The jury was staring at him with open hostility. No further questions, he said quietly. He sat down. Marcus leaned over and hissed something at him. Covington didn't respond. Elena walked Lucas out of the courtroom. In the hallway away from the cameras, she knelt down and held him. You were so brave. I was scared. Being brave means being scared and doing it anyway. Lucas hugged her tighter. Is it almost over? Almost, I promise. The fifth week brought the twist no one saw coming. Natasha took the stand, not for the defense, for the prosecution. She walked into the courtroom wearing a simple dress, no jewelry, no makeup. She looked like a different person than the glamorous fiancé who had sat behind Marcus at the custody hearing. She looked broken. Torres approached carefully. Ms. Volkov, you were engaged to Marcus Sterling. Yes. And you were present on the night of March 15th. Yes. Tell us what happened. Natasha took a shaky breath. Marcus was drinking. He had been drinking all day. Lucas came downstairs. Marcus lost his temper. He grabbed Lucas's arm and twisted it. I heard the bone break. What did you do? I screamed. I told him we had to call 911, but he said no. He said to call his private doctor. He said if I ever told anyone what happened, he would destroy me. Did you believe him? Natasha's voice cracked. I had seen what he did to Elena, how he erased her, how he made everyone believe she was crazy. I knew he could do the same to me, so I stayed quiet. What made you decide to testify now? Natasha looked at Elena. Because she didn't stay quiet. She showed me that staying quiet makes you part of the problem, and I don't want to be part of the problem anymore. She turned to the jury. I helped him cover up what he did to his son. I signed papers for accounts I didn't understand. I did everything he asked because I was scared. But I can't be scared anymore. Not when 17 people are dead. Not when a little boy had his arm broken by his own father. She was crying now. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for all of it. Covington declined to cross-examine. There was nothing he could say. Closing arguments came on a Thursday. Torres went first. Ladies and gentlemen, over the past 5 weeks, you've heard testimony from doctors, accountants, family members, and victims. You've seen evidence of fraud, cover-up, and murder. You've heard a recording of Marcus Sterling breaking his son's arm and then leaving for a party. He paused. The defense wants you to believe this is all a conspiracy, that Elena Vance orchestrated everything, that the witnesses are lying, that the evidence is fabricated. He shook his head. But ask yourselves, why would 17 families lie? Why would Dr. Chen risk everything to testify? Why would Maxwell Carter, who profited from the fraud, turn against his boss? Torres walked toward the jury box. There's only one answer. Because it's true. All of it. Marcus Sterling built his empire on lies. He killed 17 people to protect his profits. He broke his son's arm because a 9-year-old wanted water. And he thought he could get away with it because he always had before. He pointed at Marcus. He was wrong. And today, you have the power to prove him wrong. Find him guilty. Give those 17 families the justice they deserve. Give Lucas Sterling the peace he deserves. And send a message that no amount of money, no amount of power can buy your way out of murder. Covington's closing was desperate. He talked about reasonable doubt. He talked about circumstantial evidence. He talked about the presumption of innocence. But his heart wasn't in it. Even he knew it was over. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Elena sat in the hallway waiting. David Chen sat beside her. "Whatever happens," he said, "you did everything you could. It's not about what I did. It's about what he did. And whether 12 people are willing to hold him accountable. They will." "How do you know?" David smiled. "Because I saw their faces when Lucas testified. Nobody could watch that and vote not guilty." The bailiff appeared. "Verdict's in." Elena stood up. Her legs were shaking, but she walked into that courtroom with her head held high. The jury filed in. The foreman stood. Judge Morrison looked at him. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" "We have, Your Honor." "On the count of securities fraud, how do you find guilty? On the count of embezzlement, how do you find guilty? On the 17 counts of negligent homicide, how do you find—" The foreman took a breath. "Guilty on all counts." "On the count of child abuse, how do you find guilty? On the count of witness tampering, how do you find guilty?" The courtroom erupted. Families were sobbing, reporters were shouting, cameras were flashing. Marcus sat frozen. The smirk was gone, the arrogance was gone. He looked like what he was, a broken man who had finally been caught. Judge Morrison banged his gavel. "Order, order in the court." The room quieted. "Mr. Sterling, you have been found guilty on all counts. Sentencing will take place in 30 days. Bailiff, remand the defendant to custody." The officers approached Marcus. He stood up slowly. As they led him past Elena, he stopped. "This isn't over," he whispered. Elena looked him in the eye. "Yes, it is." They took him away. The doors closed behind him. Elena sat down. For a long moment, she didn't move. Then David put his hand on her shoulder. "You did it." Elena looked at the empty defendant's table, the empty chair where Marcus had sat for 5 weeks, still believing he could win. "We all did it. Every witness, every victim, every person who refused to stay silent." She stood up. "Now let's go home." Outside, the crowd was waiting. Cameras, reporters, but also something else. The families of the 17 victims. They stood together holding photographs of their loved ones. When Elena walked out, they started clapping. One by one, they came forward. They hugged her. They thanked her. They cried. Margaret Williams, the woman whose husband had died in her arms, took Elena's hands. "You gave us our voices back." Elena shook her head. "You always had your voices. I just made sure someone finally listened." She walked to her car. Lucas and Sophie were waiting inside. "Mommy," Sophie shouted, "did we win?" Elena climbed in and held them both. "Yes, baby, we won." Lucas looked at her. Is it really over? Elena thought about the past 12 years. The silence. The fear. The moment she had finally decided to fight back. It's over, she said. And now we get to start again. She started the car. She drove away from the courthouse. She didn't look back. 30 days until sentencing. Elena thought she could finally rest. She thought the hard part was over. She was wrong. The call came at 2:00 a.m. on a Tuesday night. Elena was asleep when her phone rang. She fumbled for it in the darkness, her heart already racing. Hello? Ms. Vance, this is Agent Wells. I need you to stay calm. Elena sat up immediately. What happened? Marcus Sterling was attacked in federal custody tonight. He's in critical condition at Northwestern Memorial. Elena's blood went cold. Attacked by who? Another inmate. We're still investigating. But there's something else. What? Before he was attacked, Marcus made a phone call to a number we've been monitoring. We believe he was arranging something. Arranging what? Agent Wells paused. We're not sure yet, but we've increased security at your residence. Don't leave your apartment until you hear from us. Elena hung up. She sat in the darkness, her mind racing. Marcus was in the hospital. Someone had attacked him, and he had made a phone call before it happened. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. The next morning, Elena's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters wanted statements. Board members wanted updates. David Chen wanted to know if she was okay. She ignored all of them. She packed bags for Lucas and Sophie. She called her mentor, Dr. Samuel Ortega, and asked if the children could stay with him for a few days. Elena, what's going on? I don't know yet, but I need them somewhere safe. Of course. Bring them over. She drove the children to Dr. Ortega's house in the suburbs. Lucas knew something was wrong. Mom, why can't we stay home? It's just for a few days, baby. I have some things to take care of. Is it about Dad? Elena knelt down to look at him. Your father is in the hospital. Someone hurt him. Good. The word hit Elena like a punch. Lucas? I'm sorry, but I don't care if he's hurt. He hurt me. He hurt you. He hurt all those people. Elena pulled him into a hug. I know you're angry. You have every right to be angry. But we don't wish harm on people, even people who hurt us. Why not? Because then we become like them. Lucas was quiet for a moment. Are you going to visit him in the hospital? Elena stood up. I don't know yet. She kissed both children goodbye and drove back to the city. She had a feeling she was going to need all her strength for what came next. Agent Wells met her at a coffee shop downtown. The FBI agent looked tired. Dark circles under her eyes. Coffee stains on her blazer. What do you know? Elena asked. The attack was planned. The inmate who stabbed Marcus was a lifer with nothing to lose. Someone paid him. Paid him to kill Marcus. Paid him to send a message. Marcus survived, but barely. He's in a medically induced coma. Elena processed this. Who would want Marcus dead? He has enemies, but... That's what we're trying to figure out. But here's the thing that doesn't make sense. Wells leaned forward. The phone call Marcus made before the attack, it wasn't to a lawyer, it wasn't to a family member, it was to a burner phone registered to a shell company in the Cayman Islands. One of his offshore accounts? No. This is a company we've never seen before. It's not connected to Sterling Medical at all. Elena frowned. What are you saying? I'm saying Marcus Sterling had secrets even we didn't know about. And someone else knows those secrets too. Elena's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered. Mrs. Sterling. A man's voice. Deep. Foreign accent. Russian, maybe. Who is this? A friend. You don't know me, but I know you. I've been watching you for a very long time. Elena's heart stopped. What do you want? I want to help you. Your husband was not just a businessman, Mrs. Sterling. He was a broker, information, influence, things that powerful people want kept quiet. I don't understand. The clinical trials you exposed, they were just the beginning. There's a vault, a digital vault. Marcus kept records on everyone, politicians, CEOs, judges, anyone who could be useful to him. Elena gripped the phone tighter. Why are you telling me this? Because the people in that vault want it destroyed, and they will kill anyone who knows it exists, including you. The line went dead. Elena looked at Agent Wells. We have a problem. The next 48 hours were chaos. Elena told Wells everything. The phone call, the vault, the threat. The FBI launched an immediate investigation. They pulled Marcus's computers, his servers, his backup drives. They searched every property he owned. They found nothing. It has to be somewhere, Elena insisted. He wouldn't just make this up. Maybe he was bluffing, Wells suggested. Marcus doesn't bluff. He calculates. If he kept records on powerful people, he kept them somewhere only he could access. Elena closed her eyes. Think. Where would Marcus hide something this important? Not at the office. Too many people had access. Not at the penthouse. The FBI had already searched it. Not in the cloud. Too easy to hack. Somewhere physical. Somewhere only he would go. Her eyes snapped open. The cabin. What? He has a cabin in Minnesota. He told everyone it was for family vacations, but he went there alone at least once a month. He said it was for fishing. Wells grabbed her phone. I'm sending a team now. They found it. Hidden beneath the cabin floor in a fireproof safe buried 6 feet underground was a hard drive containing over 10,000 files. Financial records, photographs, audio recordings, videos. 10 years of blackmail material on some of the most powerful people in America. Senators, federal judges, CEOs, media executives, even a former vice president. Jesus Christ, Wells whispered when she saw the list. This is a nuclear bomb. Elena stared at the screen. He was never just a businessman. He was running a shadow empire. And someone wants it buried. The question is who? Wells's phone rang. She answered, listened, and her face went pale. We need to go. Now. What happened? Marcus just woke up from his coma, and he's asking for you. Elena didn't want to go. Every instinct told her to stay away. Marcus had hurt her, manipulated her, nearly destroyed her. The last thing she wanted was to stand beside his hospital bed. But she needed answers. And Marcus was the only one who had them. She walked into Northwestern Memorial with 2 FBI agents flanking her. Marcus was in the ICU, hooked up to machines, his body covered in bandages. The man who had once commanded boardrooms and terrified employees looked small, fragile, human. He opened his eyes when Elena entered. You came. I didn't have a choice. Marcus tried to smile. It came out as a grimace. You always have a choice. That's what you taught me. What do you want, Marcus? I want to make a deal. Elena crossed her arms. You're facing 50 years to life. You have nothing to offer. I have the vault. We found the vault. The FBI has everything. Marcus shook his head. You found the backup. The real vault is somewhere else. Encrypted, with a dead man's switch. What does that mean? It means if I die, everything gets released. To every news outlet in the world. Every name. Every secret. Every crime. Elena stared at him. You're bluffing. Am I? You know me, Elena. You know I plan for everything. He was right. She did know him. And she knew he was telling the truth. What do you want? Reduced sentence. Minimum security facility. And protection. Real protection. The people in that vault want me dead. The attack in prison was just the beginning. Why would I help you? Marcus looked at her with something she had never seen in his eyes before. Fear. Because if I die, everything comes out, including things about people who are still dangerous, people who will come after anyone connected to me, including you, including our children. Elena felt ice run through her veins. You're threatening Lucas and Sophie? I'm warning you. I'm not the only monster in this story. I just happen to be the one you know. He reached out and grabbed her wrist. Help me, Elena. Please, not for me. For them. Elena pulled her arm away. I'll think about it. She turned and walked out. Behind her, Marcus called out. You have 48 hours. After that, I'll make my own deal. And you won't like who I make it with. Elena didn't respond, but she heard every word. Outside the hospital, Agent Wells was waiting. What did he say? Elena told her everything. The dead man's switch, the threat, the timeline. Wells cursed. He's playing us. Even from a hospital bed he's playing us. Maybe, but what if he's telling the truth? Then we have a serious problem. Elena's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You were warned. Now it begins. 3 seconds later, her phone rang. It was Dr. Ortega. Elena, something's wrong. There's a car outside my house. It's been there for 2 hours. Elena's blood turned to ice. Get the children. Take them to the basement. Don't open the door for anyone. Elena, what's happening? Just do it. I'm on my way. She hung up and looked at Wells. They're going after my kids. They raced across the city. Elena called every contact she had. David Chen, the security company she had hired, the local police. But the car was gone by the time they arrived. Dr. Ortega met them at the door. They left 5 minutes ago, right after I went inside with the children. Did you see who it was? 2 men, suits. They were just sitting there watching. Elena pushed past him and ran to the basement. Lucas and Sophie were huddled together, scared. Mommy, Sophie cried. Elena wrapped her arms around them. It's okay. I'm here. You're safe. But she knew they weren't. Not anymore. The FBI moved the children to a safe house that night. Elena refused to leave them. She sat in a government apartment with armed agents outside the door, watching her children sleep. Agent Wells came by at midnight. We traced the car, rental, paid for with cash. The driver's license was fake. So we have nothing. We have the vault. We're going through the files now. If we can identify who's behind this, we can stop them. How long will that take? Days, maybe weeks. I don't have days. I have 48 hours before Marcus makes his own deal. Wells sat down across from her. Elena, I have to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. What? Did you know about any of this? The blackmail, the shadow operations? Elena looked at her. If I had known, do you think I would have stayed married to him for 12 years? I had to ask. I was his cover agent Wells, the quiet wife, the perfect family. He used me to look normal while he built a criminal empire right under everyone's nose. She laughed bitterly. The irony is I spent 8 years as a federal analyst catching people exactly like him, and I never saw it. You weren't supposed to see it. That was the point. Elena looked at her sleeping children. I can't let them grow up afraid. I can't let Marcus win even from a hospital bed. What are you going to do? Elena stood up. Whatever I have to. The next morning, Elena made a decision. She went back to the hospital. Marcus was waiting. You came back. I knew you would. I didn't come to make a deal. His face fell. Then why are you here? Elena sat down beside his bed. I came to tell you something. Something I should have said a long time ago. She leaned in close. For 12 years you made me feel small. You made me feel invisible. You made me forget who I was. And when I finally remembered, you tried to destroy me. Elena. I'm not finished. Her voice was steel. You broke our son's arm. You killed 17 people. You blackmailed judges and politicians and CEOs. And now you're lying in this bed asking me to save you. She shook her head. I'm not going to save you, Marcus. I'm not going to make a deal. I'm not going to play your game. Then the vault is going to come out. All of it. Every name, every secret, every crime. Marcus's eyes went wide. You don't know what you're doing. Those people will... Those people have been hiding in the shadows for too long. They've been protected by men like you. Men who use fear and money to stay above the law. Elena stood up. That ends now. They'll kill you. Maybe, but they won't kill the truth. And the truth is already out there waiting. The FBI has the backup. The files are being analyzed. And when they're done, everyone in that vault is going to face justice. She walked to the door. Elena, wait. She turned. Marcus looked at her with something she had never seen before. Desperation. I'm sorry. For all of it. For everything I did to you. To Lucas. To those families. You're not sorry. You're scared. I'm both. Elena opened the door. Goodbye, Marcus. She walked out. She didn't look back. 2 days later, the FBI released the contents of the vault. 3 senators resigned. 2 federal judges were arrested. A media executive was indicted. The former vice president was subpoenaed. It was the biggest political scandal in American history, and it all started with a quiet nurse who refused to stay silent. Marcus Sterling was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. 17 counts of negligent homicide, securities fraud, embezzlement, child abuse, witness tampering. He was transferred to a maximum security facility in Colorado. He would never see his children again. Elena watched the sentencing on television. When the judge announced the verdict, she didn't feel joy. She didn't feel relief. She felt empty. It was over. Finally, completely over. Lucas walked into the room. Mom, are you okay? Elena turned off the television. I'm okay, baby. Did they put Daddy in jail forever? Yes. Lucas nodded. Good. He climbed onto the couch next to her. Mom. Yeah. You're the bravest person I know. Elena pulled him close. So are you. Sophie ran in from the other room. Mommy, can we have pizza for dinner? Elena laughed. It was the first time she had laughed in months. Yes, baby, we can have pizza. With extra cheese. With extra cheese. She held her children. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in 12 years, Elena Vance felt free. 1 year later. Elena stood backstage listening to the crowd on the other side of the curtain. 2,000 people, doctors, nurses, healthcare executives, victims' families, all gathered for the inaugural gala of the Vance Foundation for Healthcare Transparency. Her foundation, her legacy. David Chen appeared beside her. You ready for this? No. He laughed. Good. Means you're human. I've never given a speech to 2,000 people before. You testified against your billionaire ex-husband in federal court. You exposed a criminal conspiracy that brought down senators. You survived assassination attempts. I think you can handle a speech. Elena smiled. When you put it that way. A stage manager approached. Ms. Vance, they're ready for you. Elena took a deep breath. She thought about everything that had led to this moment. The courtroom. The silence. The recording. The trial. The vault. The threats. The moment she had finally remembered who she was. She walked onto the stage. The applause was deafening. She approached the podium. She looked out at the sea of faces. She saw Margaret Williams in the front row, the widow who had lost her husband to heart sink. She saw Dr. Sarah Chen, the researcher who had finally found the courage to speak. She saw Agent Wells sitting near the back, still watching over her. And in the very front row, she saw Lucas and Sophie. Her children. Her reason for everything. Elena leaned into the microphone. 1 year ago, I sat in a courtroom and watched a man try to erase me. The room went silent. He had the money. He had the lawyers. He had the power. And for 5 days I didn't say a word. She paused. Everyone thought I was broken. Everyone thought I had already lost. They didn't know that I was waiting for the right moment, waiting for him to tell the lies that would destroy him. She gripped the podium. I learned something important in that courtroom. I learned that silence isn't weakness. Sometimes silence is strategy. Sometimes silence is the sound of a weapon being loaded. She looked at Lucas. My son taught me something too. He taught me that bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's feeling afraid and doing the right thing anyway. He was 9 years old when he took the stand and told the truth about what his father did to him. 9 years old. And he was braver than most adults I know. Lucas smiled at her. Elena smiled back. Tonight, we're not just celebrating a foundation. We're celebrating everyone who refused to stay silent. The doctors who came forward. The families who demanded answers. The investigators who followed the truth no matter where it led. She straightened. Marcus Sterling is in prison. His company is gone. His empire is dust. But the damage he caused, the 17 lives he took, that can never be undone. She pulled out a small card from her pocket. I want to read you their names, because they deserve to be remembered. She began to read. Robert Williams, age 67, husband, father, grandfather. In the front row, Margaret Williams wiped her eyes. Susan Chen, age 54, mother of 3, kindergarten teacher. Dr. Sarah Chen, no relation, bowed her head. Elena read all 17 names. When she finished, the room was silent. These people trusted the system. They trusted that medical devices were safe. They trusted that companies told the truth, and that trust was betrayed. She looked up. The Vance Foundation exists to make sure that never happens again. We will fund independent research. We will support whistleblowers. We will shine a light into every dark corner where companies try to hide the truth. Her voice rose. Because the truth matters. It matters more than money, more than power, more than fear. And no matter how hard they try to bury it, the truth always finds a way out. She paused. I'm living proof of that. The applause that followed shook the building. Elena stood at the podium, tears streaming down her face. She had done it. She had actually done it. After the speech, Elena worked the room. Donors wanted to shake her hand. Reporters wanted interviews. Strangers wanted to tell her their own stories of corporate abuse, of cover-ups of loved ones lost. She listened to every single one. At 10:00 p.m., she finally found a quiet corner. Her feet ached. Her voice was hoarse. But she felt alive in a way she hadn't felt in years. Someone approached from behind. Hell of a speech. Elena turned. It was a woman she didn't recognize. 60 years old maybe. Silver hair, sharp eyes, expensive suit. Thank you. Do I know you? No, but I know you. I've been watching you for a while. Elena tensed. Watching me? Don't worry. I'm not a threat. I'm an opportunity. The woman handed Elena a business card. Elena read it. Catherine Price, Director, National Healthcare Ethics Commission. I don't understand. The commission is a new federal agency. We're building it from scratch. Our job is to investigate exactly the kind of fraud you exposed at Sterling Medical. That sounds important. It is. And I want you to run it. Elena stared at her. What? You have the skills, the background, the credibility. You're the only person in the country who has actually done what we're trying to do. I'm not a politician. Good. We don't need politicians. We need someone who isn't afraid to fight. Catherine smiled. Think about it. We'd be lucky to have you. She walked away. Elena looked at the card in her hand. A year ago, she had been invisible. The quiet wife. The trophy. Now she was being recruited to run a federal agency. Life was strange. She found Lucas waiting by the exit. Mom, can we go home? Sophie's asleep on the couch. Elena laughed. Yes, baby. Let's go home. She picked up Sophie, who stirred but didn't wake. As they walked to the car, Lucas took her hand. "Mom." "Yeah. I'm proud of you." Elena squeezed his hand. "I'm proud of you too. Can we get ice cream? It's 11 o'clock at night." "So." Elena smiled. "Fine. Ice cream it is." They drove through the city, eating ice cream at midnight, laughing at nothing and everything. It was the best night Elena could remember in a very long time. 3 months later, Elena accepted the position. She became the first director of the National Healthcare Ethics Commission. Her office was in Washington, D.C., but she worked remotely as much as possible. She wasn't going to miss another moment with her children. Her first act was to establish a whistleblower protection program. Her second was to open investigations into 3 major pharmaceutical companies with questionable trial data. The healthcare industry panicked. Lobbyists descended on Congress. Executives wrote op-eds calling her a vigilante. Conservative media accused her of being anti-business. Elena didn't care. She had faced Marcus Sterling. She had survived assassination attempts. She had watched her son testify against his own father. A few angry lobbyists weren't going to scare her. Her team grew. Young investigators who believed in the mission. Veteran analysts who had seen too much corruption and wanted to fight back. Lawyers who had spent careers defending corporations and wanted to do something meaningful for once. They called themselves the Truth Squad. It was corny. Elena loved it. 6 months into the job, her phone rang at 2:00 a.m. She answered without thinking. "Ms. Vance, this is Warden Mitchell at ADX Florence." Elena sat up. ADX Florence was where Marcus was imprisoned. "What's wrong?" "I'm calling to inform you that Marcus Sterling was found dead in his cell tonight." Elena's heart stopped. "Dead? How?" "Apparent suicide. He left a note. It was addressed to you." Elena couldn't speak. "Ms. Vance, are you there?" "Yes, I'm here. The note has been processed as evidence, but I can read you the contents if you'd like." "Read it." The warden cleared his throat. "Elena, you won. I always knew you would. You were always smarter than me, stronger than me. I just couldn't admit it. I spent my whole life building an empire and you burned it to the ground with nothing but patience and the truth. I deserve what's coming. I know that now. But I need you to know something. I loved you. In my own broken, twisted way, I loved you. I just didn't know how to show it without controlling it. Tell Lucas and Sophie that their father was sorry. Not for what I did. I can't change that, but for who I was. I should have been better. You deserved better. They deserved better. Goodbye. Marcus." Elena sat in silence. The warden waited. "Ms. Vance." "Thank you for calling." She hung up. She sat in the darkness for a long time. She didn't cry. She didn't feel sad. She felt nothing. Marcus Sterling was dead. The man who had terrorized her, who had broken her son's arm, who had killed 17 people, who had threatened to destroy everything she loved. He was gone. And she didn't know how to feel about it. In the morning, she told the children. Lucas took it stoically. "Good," he said. "Now he can't hurt anyone else." Sophie didn't understand. "Is Daddy in heaven?" Elena knelt down to look at her daughter. "I don't know, baby. But you don't have to worry about him anymore. He's gone." "Was he a bad man?" Elena thought about the question. "He did bad things. A lot of bad things. But people are complicated. He was your father and he loved you in his own way. That doesn't excuse what he did, but it's part of the truth." Sophie nodded. "I don't remember him very much." "That's okay. You don't have to. Can we get pancakes?" Elena smiled. "Yes, baby. We can get pancakes." Life moved on. The investigations continued. 3 pharmaceutical companies paid billions in fines. 2 CEOs went to prison. Whistleblower protections were strengthened nationwide. The Vance Foundation grew. They funded research that exposed fraud in medical device manufacturing. They helped families sue companies that had harmed them. They trained a new generation of healthcare investigators. Elena became a national figure. She testified before Congress. She was interviewed on 60 Minutes. She wrote a book that spent 18 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list. But through it all, she remained focused on what mattered most: her children. Lucas turned 13. He joined the debate team at school. He was good at it. Sharp, logical, fearless. His therapist said he was processing his trauma in healthy ways. Sophie turned 10. She loved art and animals and anything with glitter. She barely remembered her father, which was probably a blessing. They were happy. Elena was happy. For the first time in her life, she was truly happy. On the second anniversary of the trial, Elena received an unexpected visitor. She was at home making dinner when the doorbell rang. She opened it to find Judge Patricia Moreau standing on her doorstep. "Judge Moreau?" "Ms. Vance, I hope I'm not intruding." "Not at all. Please come in." The judge who had presided over her custody case walked into her home. "I apologize for showing up unannounced. I tried calling, but your office said you were taking a personal day." "My son's birthday is tomorrow. I'm making his favorite cake. Chocolate, triple chocolate with ganache." Judge Moreau smiled. "He's a lucky boy." "Can I get you something tea?" "Coffee would be wonderful." They sat at the kitchen table. Elena poured 2 cups. "What brings you here, Judge?" "I'm retiring next month, after 40 years on the bench." "Congratulations." "Thank you. But before I go, I wanted to tell you something. Something I've been thinking about for 2 years. Elena waited. "In my career, I've presided over thousands of cases. Custody battles, divorces, abuse hearings. I've seen the worst of humanity. Parents who hurt their children, spouses who destroy each other, families torn apart by greed and cruelty." She paused. "But I've never seen anything like you." "I'm not sure what you mean." "You sat in my courtroom for 5 days. You watched your husband lie. You watched his lawyers attack your character. You watched everyone assume you had already lost. And you didn't flinch, not once." Elena shrugged. "I was waiting." "I know. That's what amazed me. Most people would have cracked. Most people would have fought back too early or given up entirely. But you understood something that most people never learn." "What's that?" "That justice isn't about winning, it's about truth. And the truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs to be heard at the right moment." Judge Moreau reached across the table and took Elena's hand. "You changed my life, Ms. Vance. You reminded me why I became a judge in the first place. You reminded me that the system can work when brave people are willing to fight for it." Elena felt tears in her eyes. "Thank you, Judge. That means more than you know." "One more thing." "Yes." Judge Moreau smiled. "The cake smells like it's burning." Elena jumped up. "Oh no." She rushed to the oven and pulled out the cake. It was slightly overdone on the edges but salvageable. "I think we're okay." "Good. I'd hate to be responsible for ruining a birthday cake." They both laughed. Judge Moreau stayed for another hour. They talked about life, about justice, about what comes next. When she left, Elena walked her to the door. "Thank you for coming. Thank you for everything you did. Not just for your children. For all of us." The judge walked into the night. Elena watched her go. Then she went back to the kitchen to finish the cake. The next day was Lucas's birthday, 13 years old. Elena couldn't believe how fast time had passed. They had a small party, just family and a few close friends. Dr. Ortega came. David Chen came. Agent Wells sent a card. Lucas blew out his candles. "What did you wish for?" Sophie asked. "I can't tell you. It won't come true." "That's not fair?" "Life's not fair, Sophie." "Mom." Elena laughed. "Don't look at me. He's right." After the party, Elena and Lucas sat on the back porch while Sophie played inside. Good birthday. The best. I'm glad. Lucas was quiet for a moment. Mom, can I ask you something? Always. Do you ever regret it? Fighting back? Elena thought about the question. No, never. Even after everything that happened, the threats, the attacks, Dad dying in prison. Even after all of that. Because if I hadn't fought back, you and Sophie would be with him right now, and he would have raised you to be just like him. Lucas nodded. I'm glad you fought back. Me too. Mom. Yeah. I want to be a lawyer when I grow up, like David. I want to help people who can't help themselves. Elena felt her heart swell. That's a wonderful goal. Will you help me teach me what you know? Of course, but you have to promise me something first. What? Never forget who you are. Never let power change you. Never become someone who hurts people to get what they want. Lucas looked at her. I promise. Good. She pulled him into a hug. I love you, Lucas. I love you too, Mom. They sat together in the fading light. Mother and son. Survivors. Winners. 3 years later, Elena was invited to speak at Harvard Law School. The topic corporate accountability and the power of whistleblowers. She stood at the podium looking out at hundreds of future lawyers. When I was your age, I thought the system would protect people. I thought if you did the right thing, justice would follow. She shook her head. I was naive. The system is only as good as the people who run it. And too often the people who run it care more about money than justice, more about power than truth. She leaned forward. That's where you come in. You're going to be lawyers. Some of you will work for corporations. Some of you will work for the government. Some of you will go into private practice. Whatever path you choose, you will face moments where you have to decide who you are. Moments where telling the truth will cost you. Where doing the right thing will make your life harder. When those moments come, and they will come, I want you to remember my story. Remember that I sat in silence for 5 days while a billionaire tried to destroy me. Remember that I waited until the exact right moment to speak. Remember that I lost everything before I won. And remember that the truth always wins. It might take time. It might take sacrifice. It might take everything you have. But the truth always wins. She looked out at the sea of young faces. Be brave. Be patient. And never, ever stay silent when you see injustice. She stepped back from the podium. The applause was thunderous. After the speech, a young woman approached her. Ms. Vance, I'm Sarah. Sarah Williams. Elena recognized the name. Williams, are you related to? Robert Williams was my grandfather. He was one of the 17. Elena took her hand. I'm so sorry for your loss. Thank you, but that's not why I came to talk to you. Then why? Sarah's eyes were fierce. I'm going to be a healthcare lawyer. I'm going to spend my career doing what you do, holding companies accountable, protecting patients, fighting for the truth. That's wonderful. I wanted you to know that you inspired me. My grandfather died because Marcus Sterling cared more about money than people. But you made sure his death meant something. You made sure it led to change. Sarah squeezed her hand. Thank you for giving my family justice. And thank you for showing me what courage looks like. Elena hugged her. Your grandfather would be proud of you. I hope so. Sarah walked away. Elena watched her go. A new generation. Carrying the torch. Fighting the fight. It was more than she could have ever hoped for. That night, Elena called Lucas. He was in his junior year at Yale. Pre-law, just like he'd promised. Hey, Mom, how was the speech? Good, I think. Hard to tell with law students. Lucas laughed. They're trained not to react. It's a lawyer thing. How are your classes? Hard, but good. I love it here. I'm proud of you, Lucas. You know that, right? I know, Mom. You tell me every time we talk. And I'll keep telling you until you're sick of hearing it. I'll never be sick of hearing it. Elena smiled. Good night, baby. Good night, Mom. Love you. Love you too. She hung up. She walked to her window and looked out at the city. Somewhere out there, Lucas was studying to become a lawyer. Sophie was finishing middle school, already talking about becoming a veterinarian. The Vance Foundation was changing healthcare policy nationwide. The commission was holding corporations accountable. It had been 5 years since she had sat in that courtroom silent and waiting. 5 years since she had destroyed an empire with nothing but patience and the truth. 5 years since she had remembered who she was. Elena thought about the woman she used to be. The quiet wife. The trophy. The invisible woman who had forgotten her own strength. That woman was gone. In her place stood someone new. Someone who had learned that silence wasn't weakness. Someone who had faced a monster and won. Someone who had built a legacy from the ashes of her old life. She had lost everything. And then she had gained something more valuable. Herself. Elena closed her eyes. She thought about Marcus, about the trial, about the 17 families who had finally found justice, about Lucas on the stand telling the truth at 9 years old, about Sophie asking for pancakes the morning she learned her father was dead. She thought about Judge Moreau's words. The truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs to be heard at the right moment. She had found her moment, and she had changed the world. Elena opened her eyes. She smiled. Not because the fight was over, it would never truly be over, but because she knew who she was now. She was Elena Vance. Mother, leader, fighter. The woman who had stayed quiet in court. The woman who had waited. The woman who had won. And nothing, no amount of money, no amount of power, no amount of fear would ever make her forget that again. The most dangerous person in the room isn't the one shouting threats. It's the one quietly taking notes. Elena Vance proved that silence isn't weakness. It's power. And the truth will always find a way out.